Today we'll be checking out the F-4J, which is the American Navy F-4 Phantom. Now, its best tactic is going to be booming and zooming and using BVR, because this does carry the AIM-7F, which in my opinion is the best radar-guided air-to-air missile in the game. And the reason I say this is because it has an extremely long range. Now, if you climb super high with the F-4J, you'll be above your target, so you can get those cool vertical shots. This doesn't work all the time, but, you know, there's not much geometry people could work with when they're trying to kill you when you're above them. Also, this comes with a neat gun pod, so when things get a little saucy, you can just hold the trigger and pin over your targets. Now, the AIM-7E2 is a faster Sparrow, while the AIM-7F is slower, but it has extremely longer range, which is really good because this missile is slower, which means it'll actually turn a lot better. It has a 25G limit, just like the AIM-7E2, except it is a slower missile, so it's going to pull more. It's like a Phantom going Mach 1 or a Phantom going around, 200 knots. Phantom going 200 knots is going to turn a lot better than a Phantom going Mach 1. Now, this shot here, if you go back, it is actually a 10-mile shot. And this is insane. Like, you could see it's still tracking. It's still got its trail. The trail didn't disappear, so it's still burning. At the last second it did, but that's a 10-mile shot right there with the AIM-7F, which is insane. And it maneuvers really well. It just takes a little time to get to its target, which I don't mind. If my missile could pull a lot better, I'm happy. Now, the AIM-9s on this thing, they're pretty decent. They're AIM-9s. They're nothing special. They're not the Js or the Ps, but they do get the job done, especially on long-range shots. Right here, you can see I lock them up with the radar-guided missile. This one misses because I'm actually not sure. I'm pretty sure that was ground clutter. But, I'm like, screw it. I don't want to go back up. I want to get my hands dirty. And the best way to use this gun is to paint over your targets. Literally, do not aim. Literally, just hold the trigger, and eventually you'll start breaking stuff. Because, surprisingly, this doesn't lose as much ammo as the Vulcan when you're holding the trigger. And I use the same tactic with the Vulcan. I literally just hold the mouse button or the trigger and paint over the targets. Now, this shot with the AIM-7F is a little bit weird because this guy starts to deploy chaff and flares. And they're very, very effective. At least it looks like they're very effective because my radar slews to the chaff. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to lock that instead. But my AIM-7F just doesn't care and locks them anyway. So... yeah, it's a really funky missile. I love it. I think it's the best radar missile in the game currently. That might change in a different patch, but And the gun is actually quite neat. I still don't think I'm going to bring it into Sim just because I like my speed, but in RB, you typically get some pretty close quarter shots anyway. So, I'm going to suggest bringing the gun, but it could get you out of some sticky situations if all else fails, because that Su-22, I believe, turned off its engine, so I couldn't lock them. Which is basically a Vixen syndrome, and if you don't know what that is, basically everybody who's fighting a Vixen just turns off their engine so it can't kill them. Now, this MLD is killed by an AIM-9G. You could see how long and how far these things could burn, which is quite neat, especially for an AIM-9. So these things are meant to be used pretty stealthily. And I land and get killed on the runway. But, it was a fun game. I got 5 kills. I'll take it. Now, here's the Sim bit. Now, Sim, it's a little different. I'd say this is even better in Sim. One, because Sim is a more passive game mode, I would say. Yet you could get more kills. It's weird. Anyway, so I use the AIM-7s on this. Obviously, this has bigger maps, so you're going to be locking people at 10 miles consistently. And you could see the AIM-7, it just tracks for a while. It keeps that burner on. You can still see it leading, and boom, hit him. And I launched at around, I think, 8 to 9 miles. This guy also launched on, and it starts to track. But this one sadly misses because he dumps his countermeasures. And this is a MiG-21. Now, these things are very tiny silhouettes, so you could lose them on the radar pretty quick. And once they force a dogfight, things get pretty saucy. But the best thing to do with a MiG-21, at least when you're fighting one, is to go for the vertical, especially if you're higher than them, which is a really good tactic. And you see here, I didn't have the gun. I probably could have pulled off a shot there, but I didn't bring the gun because I wanted to have more speed and energy and just better performance. You can see here, right in the vertical, I'm out climbing him because I was above him when we merged. So that's a good tactic with the Phantom, always going for the vertical when the situation is perfect for it. When you're above them and you fly past them in the vertical, it's a perfect situation. Maybe don't do this with the flogger unless the pilot is low on energy. You can see here, that's a Fox 2, and it slaps him in the face. I also turned off my radar there so it could be a little stealthy so it doesn't start deploying chaff flares. Now this AIM-7 shot is this was around 7 miles, which is insane. Typically with the Viggen I'll fire around 5 miles, at least with the Sky Flash or the AIM-7 E2s, but these things are just insane. They're maneuverable. That was like a 3-mile shot, and it just pulled hard. Now, of course, after you use all your weapons, you gotta go RTB, and landing on a carrier could be problematic, but, you know, I just use the DCS tactics, which is landing around 180 knots, and that typically doesn't damage the aircraft too bad. Although War Thunder's catapults are a little weird in physics, but, you know, it's just cool. We made it. We're alive. And we take back off, launch this thing at 7 miles. It starts to track, and you can see it's getting closer and closer and closer, and you can see the trails there the whole time, which is just amazing. And that was a player JA-35. Now, here is when someone gets on my 6, and I have to try and evade him. And I try going for the vertical tactic, but he sadly has more energy than me, which is very unfortunate for me. He's just hanging on me real tight, and you know, he's more maneuverable. So if they catch up to you, your best shot is to make him overshoot, and hopefully you have a friendly right behind you too to save the day. I probably would have still went for the vertical after he bled all that energy, just tried to pass him, but you know, I got very lucky there. That's one thing with the Phantom, you can't see behind you well, and that could be a problem, especially when MiGs are around trying to kill you. Then here's another AIM-7 shot, you know, long range, nothing new here. He gets hit, he dies. It's amazing. I love the AIM-7F. It's absolutely gold. Now this Mirage right here, he tries to launch a missile at me. Now the Mirage bleeds a lot, and I knew, okay, I could beat him in the vertical. He launches a radar-guided missile at me. Luckily, it loses lock, and I'm far enough to where it doesn't get to me. There's another MiG-21 trying to shoot me here. But I pull out the AIM-9s because I'm like, okay, I can't track this guy towards the ground. He's in radar clutter. And I just pull the nose up and launch. And look how hard that thing pulls. And just boom, he's dead. The only problem I have with the aircraft is the radar on the pulse Doppler mode. It turns off the IFF, so you have to really ID your targets when you're launching missiles. But other than that, it's a great aircraft. I love it. I highly suggest it.